Horror games have given us some of the most terrifying, twisted, and downright nightmare-inducing characters of all time. Some are terrifying because of their looks, others are scary because of their behaviour, and some are just messed up on every level. So today, I'm going to be talking about some of my favourite characters from horror games, ranging from the creepy little henchmen all the way up to the big bad bosses. But without too much rambling from me, here are my 10 favourite enemies in horror games. Adam the Clown, Dead Rising. One of the reasons I loved Dead Rising was because it never took itself too seriously. It was an amazing game, but also an amazing satirical take on the horror genre in general. And it never tried to be overly scary. But the reason Adam sticks out for me is because I genuinely hate clowns. And Adam takes that to terrifying extremes. A former entertainer at the Willamette Mall, Adam snapped after the zombie outbreak, treating the apocalypse like his own personal show. Armed with 2 chainsaws, he attacks in a manic and unpredictable way, flipping between giddy excitement and sudden violent rage. But what makes him so disturbing, apart from the terrifying clown face, is the way he uses his humour to mask the underlying insanity, which one hits a bit close to home. But it's also seeing his twisted version of the apocalypse. It's a grotesque reflection of his broken psyche. The combination of childish laughter and the gruesome violence he unleashes makes him one of the most unsettling enemies in Dead Rising, and he is made so much creepier in the remake that came out last year. Piggsy, Manhunt. Now, Manhunt is already one of the most disturbing games out there. It probably doesn't seem that bad now, and I can't say I ever thought it was too bad, but I also grew up with Saw, Wrong Turn, Final Destination, so I wasn't really of the time to see how much of an impact it had. But anyway, Piggsy's in a league of his own. This guy is the embodiment of nightmare fuel. He's a massive, deranged man who wears a blood-stained pig's head as a mask, and he's wielding a chainsaw like it's just another tool in his garden shed. But his chainsaw isn't just a tool, it's a weapon for making your life miserable. What makes Piggsy so terrifying isn't just his appearance, it's his unpredictability. You never know when he's going to pop up, and the tension is insane. I remember when you're trying to sneak around him in that old abandoned house, I think it was, and out of nowhere he was right behind me, and I froze up. I wasn't sure if I should run, or fight, or just give up. Spoiler, I gave up. But Piggsy isn't just some random killer. He's a symbol of everything wrong with Manhunt's brutal, oppressive world. The game pushes the boundaries of horror, but Piggsy takes it to an almost unbearable level. He's a tragic, broken person, and that just makes the whole encounter feel even more twisted. Mimics. Prey. Prey is a game all about paranoia, and no creature embodies this feeling more than the mimic. These small spider-like aliens have the ability to shapeshift into any object in the environment, turning everyday items into deadly traps. A chair could be a mimic, a coffee cup could be a mimic, even a simple drawer could harbour a hidden enemy. The mimics are part of the Typhon species, an alien race studying humans aboard a space station. Their method of feeding is to drain the life from their victims, and their unsettling clicking noises and sudden erratic movements make them one of the most unnerving threats in the game. It's not just their appearance that's terrifying though, it's the constant sense of dread, the paranoia that anything around you could be a trap. The mimics turn your own surroundings against you, and that's what makes them such effective and terrifying enemies. As much as I really enjoyed Prey, I spent a lot of time hiding under desks and crawling practically anywhere I could go. Not because of the bigger enemies as such, but because as soon as you see something you need to pick up, the moment you get close to it, one of those little bastards is gonna jump out, and you can feel it every time you're edging towards something. The hairs on your body just standing up more and more, until suddenly it's too late. The mimic jumps into your face, you're panicking, your controller goes flying, you're dead, you have to reload. And as frustrating as that could be, it was also very entertaining. The Wendigos, Until Dawn. The Wendigos in Until Dawn are one of those creatures that are so terrifying you kinda wish they stayed in folklore. These monsters were once human, cursed after resorting to cannibalism in the harsh winter mountains. They're a perfect example of how Until Dawn blends folklore with pure horror, and the first time you actually get to see one, it's kinda hard to make out what it is. Its gaunt, skeletal form and hunger-driven behaviour made it the perfect creature to haunt a snowy mountain. What makes the Wendigos terrifying isn't just their physical appearance though, it's how they move. These things are fast, crawling along walls and ceilings like something out of a fever dream. Plus they can mimic human voices, which adds an even creepier layer to their already disturbing nature. It's like they're hunting you with the twisted advantage of knowing exactly how to get you to trust them. The game does a good job of keeping you constantly questioning everything around you, which just amps you up and builds that tension and paranoia. The Wendigo is a terrifying reminder of how quickly your survival instincts can break down, and I will never forget that scene towards the end of the game when you need to go and turn the light switch on, and you have that Wendigo like right in your face. I was clenching the controller so hard, and they ask you not to move, which is so difficult, but also so rewarding if you pull it off and get to send them up into a ball of flames. Lucas Baker, Resident Evil 7. Resident Evil 7 rejuvenated the series, bringing it back to pure visceral horror. And while the Baker family is terrifying in general, Lucas Baker is a completely different breed of monster. While Jack and Marguerite are tragic victims of the mold infection, Lucas was evil long before that. He wasn't controlled by the infection, he manipulated it. A child prodigy turned sadistic psychopath, Lucas had always been fascinated by torture, even before he was infected. After being experimented on, he developed a resistance to the mold's control, allowing him to keep his free will. But instead of escaping, he chose to play along, using his intelligence to build elaborate, Saw-like death traps for his victims, taking pleasure in their suffering. His unpredictability makes him especially terrifying. Unlike Jack, who was a brute force threat, Lucas is methodical, always one step ahead. He isn't just scary, he's cruel, and what makes him stick in my mind is that cruelty. It's the same reason I was a big fan of films like Saw. It's not just the traps themselves, it's the psychology of the person making those traps and taking pleasure in those things. Unlike with other Resident Evil bosses and antagonists, they're usually in it for a reason. They're not just there killing to kill. It's, power, control, money. But Lucas doesn't do it for anything other than for the sake of loving doing it. And it's him getting off on that essentially that makes him stick in my mind. Dividers, Dead Space. Dead Space is a masterclass in sci-fi horror. And I say that honestly as someone that's not a massive sci-fi guy, but Dead Space's necromorphs are some of the most terrifying enemies in gaming. But amongst them, Dividers stand out as one of the most unsettling. These tall, thin creatures look unnatural even before they attack, with their stretched out limbs and slow, eerie movements. But the true horror begins when you shoot them. Instead of just dying like you would expect them to, Dividers break apart, separating into multiple smaller creatures that swarm you all at once. The game conditions you to aim for necromorph limbs to take them down, but with Dividers, doing so only multiplies the problem. Their unsettling whispering sounds before they attack add to their eeriness, making them true nightmare fuel. I've always really enjoyed the first time you encounter a Divider, the way it slowly walks around the corner at you. And as much as you're scared, by this point in the game you're sort of feeling confident enough to give it a go. Then you just end up wasting all your ammo, get swarmed, and it pops your head off. But I think it does it so well because it plays against your expectations and completely comes out of left field. And similar to the regenerators in Resident Evil 4, you spend the rest of the game just praying there's not another one around the corner. The Teacher, Little Nightmares 2. In Little Nightmares 2, the world is a nightmarish landscape where grotesque, twisted adults lurk around every corner. But one of the most chilling figures in this dark world is the sadistic teacher. This character runs a deranged school, enforcing the most strict and sinister of rules. At first glance, her appearance is quite unsettling. She has a stiff, doll-like face, unnaturally still, and her cold, unblinking eyes give the eerie sense that she's always watching you. But what really sets her apart is her ability to extend her neck, allowing her to peer into hidden spaces or around corners. And if I'm being honest with you, the first time I saw her extend her neck, I clenched my butt so hard I almost swallowed my sofa. But when you make a noise, her head jerks towards you, and her impossibly long neck follows, snaking through vents and narrow spaces to track you down. It's not just her appearance that makes her terrifying though. It's the feeling of being hunted in a place that's supposed to be safe, only to have it turn into a claustrophobic nightmare. Her presence embodies the game's overarching themes of control and oppression, and her relentless pursuit makes the school in Little Nightmares 2 one of the most terrifying locations in the game. The Xenomorph, Alien Isolation. The Xenomorph has always been a scary character, but Alien Isolation manages to take it to an entirely new level. In most games, the monster can be defeated, but in Alien Isolation, the Xenomorph is completely unkillable. I remember the first time I encountered it in the game, my heart was pounding. You're just trying to sneak around, doing your thing, when suddenly you hear that distinctive hiss, and you just know it's close. And the worst part, it learns. You're trying to hide in one spot too often, the Xenomorph will start to figure it out and come looking for you. It's like the monster is stalking you in real time, constantly adapting, and that creates pure, unrelenting dread. But what adds to the Xenomorph being so terrifying? It's unbeatable. It's the constant feeling that it's hunting you. You know that the second you slip up, it's game over. The atmosphere in this game is incredible. There's this intense feeling of isolation. You're just this tiny human in a massive, dangerous space station trying to survive. And let me tell you, when that creature shows up, survival becomes really hard. There's something uniquely terrifying about a predator that's not only smarter than you, but also relentless. It's a chase you can't win, and for me, that's what made the Xenomorph in Alien Isolation a perfect example of how to make a monster truly horrifying. It's the definition of a never-ending nightmare. Laura Victoriano, the Evil Within. Now, Laura from The Evil Within might not be the first enemy that you think of when it comes to terrifying monsters in video games, but for me, she is absolute nightmare fuel. She was once Ruvik's sister, but after being burned alive by villagers, she's resurrected in his twisted world as a monstrous multi-limbed entity. Her appearance is like something in my darkest nightmares, a spider-like creature with long black hair covering her face. Laura's movements are downright disturbing. She's like if Samara from The Ring had a baby with a tarantula. When you first encounter her, it feels like you're trapped. Her body contorts with impossible movements, and it just gets under your skin. I remember being genuinely terrified during my first encounter with her. It was that kind of situation where I thought, alright, I'm gonna kill this. Nope, I'm not killing. Run. Laura is relentless, and the sound of her blood-curdling screams echoing through the game makes every moment you spend near her feel like a ticking time bomb. But it's not just how she looks that terrifies me. It's the same thing that scares me with spiders. It's the way they move. It's so erratic. You can't judge it. You can't guess what it's gonna do. It's just fast and comes out of nowhere. I mean, yeah, I guess it's tragic with the reflection of Ruvik's twisted grief, but honestly, it's the look and the movement for me. But if you like your horror with a bit of emotional depth, then I guess that does it too. Abstract Daddy, Silent Hill 2. Silent Hill is known for its psychological horror, and few creatures embody this better than Abstract Daddy. While Pyramid Head's presence is unsettling due to his obvious brutality, and the nurse's disfigured face and large chest makes me feel like I need therapy,
Abstract Daddy disturbs in a far more cerebral way. This grotesque creature, a fusion of two figures trapped under a suffocating sheet, twists and writhes in disturbing motions that represent Angela's deep-rooted trauma. This manifestation is not just a monster, it's an embodiment of abuse that Angela suffered at the hands of her father. The creature's design, with its warped and shifting form, creates a sense of suffocating discomfort. As it attacks, it almost seems to press down on James, but it's not just the appearance of Abstract Daddy that makes it so disturbing. It's the emotional and psychological weight that it carries. Every encounter with this monster is a chilling reminder of the personal horrors it symbolizes, making it one of the most skin-crawling designs in a game that's already full of skin-crawling designs.
That's the video. Why don't you let me know some of your favourite horror characters down in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and feel free to look at all the other videos I have on my channel, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one.